Okay, we've just got to the end of day 11 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry. This afternoon, since the last video at lunch, there was a closed session which we didn't get to hear about, and then there was the Rule 10 questions, the further questions for the Undercover Police Officer James Thomson. I'm joined with Donal O'Driscoll from the Undercover Research Group. What did you make of what we heard?
Oh, there was very tense moments.
There were some very tense moments. Yeah, there was a breach, which we cannot talk about. Please do not mention anything about that. Really important.
Won't. But, you know, meeting unusually for him, after the Rule 10 questions, he came in to start asking questions about what was going on, Operation Line, what's the timetable for when Thomson and L3 drove in France. He's clearly very, very up on the documents. He's got a picture, and he started wanting to unpick it, and it became more and more clear that Thomson was very, very uncomfortable with this line of questioning.
Yeah, it was a real sort of Columbo, just one more thing kind of moment.
Really what it was.
So, I mean, he started off with the fact that Sarah went to join them in France, in Bordeaux, that she was flying in, that this was pre-booked. Yeah, so originally the plan was they go to Bordeaux first, then Marseille. The contention is that Thomson switched. It was never going to go to Bordeaux first. It was always Bordeaux second. But he didn't want his handlers to be present when the supposed exchange for the weapon happened. So they couldn't watch him do the exchange. He just was go, oh, there's the vehicle. It's got the gun in it. So it was pointed out, well, they've already booked a flight for Sarah to join them in Bordeaux. Why? How does that work? There was a lot of stuff about like, well, why didn't you? When did the plan change? Why didn't you inform your handlers sooner? Very specific.
He went through the chronology in quite detail, and like, you know, Thomson was doing his usual. If you say so, if you agree, it's like because every time he says that, he's not actually saying that's true. He's saying, "Oh, if that's what's written there, I don't disagree." He's not saying I agree, and it's very obvious that Mitting was not impressed with that sort of approach, and goes, "I don't want you to agree with me. I want you to. What do you remember?"
Use your memory. I don't have memory.
Yeah, you seem to have no memory whatsoever of this entire period of your life, and he's relying on this, supposed dissociative identity disorder that he's dreamt up. But yeah, no. So Mitting was getting very into there's something not right. How did you communicate? How was this planned? It's like for such what was clearly a significant operation, and it seemed to be done very ad hoc. It's like. You remind me almost of Lambert. So I'm totally in control, so therefore I can slip under the radar. You won't pay attention to me. He doesn't want to let control, and comes across really obvious that. Well, those of us who've been exposed to the evidence for the last how long? It's like this doesn't work. This fantasy you've concocted is just fantasy, and you've convinced everybody. And this is just another example of the devil's in the detail.
Yeah, I mean, there was some very strong questioning from Mitting about the fact that he said, you've led me to believe that you met with a member of the Marseille underworld who sold you a gun, bullets and gunpowder. Now, this doesn't make any sense at all. What was the gunpowder for? It was perfectly possible to buy that gunpowder in a normal shop in France, or in fact in the UK, certainly at the time. It's not like it was a musket or something. What the hell's the gunpowder for? It doesn't fit. Why would a member of the Marseille underworld be selling it? I mean, Thomson has no answer for this at all.
Yeah, I mean, I did get into it, but also it's like you were taking a serving police officer into an operation, potentially involved in trafficking, and like the other day we heard about how they met up at the undercover with the supposed seller. They just go to a random cafe, and then they drive to a random place which he chooses.
None of it was credible.
What happens if that person was under surveillance?
Yeah.
Where's your risk assessment here?
I mean, literally, Mitting's very clear. Like, none of this is credible whatsoever. And really, basically, Thomson responds by doing a breach, pulling the cable cord. We can't talk about anything to do with it, but there's no credible answer. Rewinding a bit, like some of the other things that was talked about. I mean, it was kind of brushed over a little bit, I felt, but one of the questions was that, it was pointed out to Thomson that, he claims that he knew what he was doing with Sarah and Ellie was wrong, but it was pointed out that the culture within the unit, we've heard from so many former officers, that was such that there was quite blasé about these sexual relationships. And was it the fact that he didn't think it was wrong and he didn't stop? It was that he didn't feel worried about it because it was so normal. And he said, oh no, he knew what he was doing was wrong because of the depth of the relationships. Not that they were sexual, but the depth of them. Really sort of like accepting that the culture was, as we know it was that there was no problem with these sexual relationships.
Yeah, and he still has no real. The reason he hasn't properly apologised is because he still thinks in his head, or he's trying to present in his head, that they were real and genuine, even though he's been torn apart by it. You know, he has had to admit that they're deceitful and abusive. But in his head, he had the good intentions. He thinks, and it's like, oh, fuck off, mate. This is horrible. But it's he still, and also when it was when it was raised about other undercovers were getting exposed, were having relationships, he still wasn't able to join the dots about when well, actually maybe the women that I've deceived, they might be in the same situation. It's like, no, I was in control, I loved them, that's all that matters. And this is why I think he's a fantasist. He's convinced himself of his own reality, and the only person who believes his reality is himself.
Yeah, I mean, Mitting also pointed out that, it was David Barr, Barr pointed out that normally when people know that what they're doing is wrong, there comes a point where they stop doing it. I mean, he claims that he knew what he was doing was wrong very early on, but he carried on doing it for another 16 years. So could he explain this? He couldn't. And Barr said, is it just simply down to your complete lack of morality? And Thomson accepted this. He was like, yeah, I completely lack any kind of morality.
Yeah, well, then he was jumping just with, I will just accept everything, but it was really...
Very much. That was the character of it, he was accepting anything.
Yeah, but it was all done in this sort of slightly couched language that he avoids taking any responsibility for his own illusions or also his own lies. He's just, it comes across as somebody who's totally deluded about himself. But there's also a point, it was just like he could... Even after it was becoming clear that relationships were an issue, he was continuing to do these relationships. He just, in his head, he didn't make any connection. I think that's possibly one of the few true things he's actually said. Is like, he's so devolved from reality, he just wasn't making any connection and he didn't care what damage. And, the truest thing he could have actually said was he was just thinking with his dick. I'm sorry to be so crude about it, but after having listened to all the evidence about the emails and the constant pestering for pictures and how he was always a constant desire, it's like, man, I'm embarrassed to be a man with people like you, and this is cringe. But the reality was all he could think about was having sex. It's quite pathetic. Yeah,
incredibly pathetic. And there was a few other little tidbits. He mentioned right at the end when he was asked who he was still in contact, who he had been speaking to about the inquiry, other undercover officers. He mentioned Jim Boyling, he mentioned Bob Lambert, and he also mentioned Christine Green, HN16?
Yes.
Yeah, which was very interesting. I mean, it was kind of like the inquiry didn't sort of put any sort of emphasis on it, but as we all know, Christine Green was considered to be out of the picture. Someone who was, estranged from the rest of the undercover officers, but clearly not.
In 2000, she went off with a partner, an animal rights activist. Left the police after an elaborate.
Left her husband.
As far as we are aware, she's still with that person, and it's like, but we're now learning that sometimes in 2010s she's in contact with or they're all in contact with each other somehow, and he's also talking to Lambert and Boyling, two of the most disreputable undercovers, out of a pretty rotten bunch. It's like they are vying for which one can sink to the bottom the fastest at this point.
He admitted actually that those conversations did include the possibility of leaving the country to avoid being questioned. He said that it might have been him who suggested it.
Yeah, it was an incredible. But it's like. But I think by that stage he felt so utterly shafted by the inadequacy of his own evidence. And as other people pointed out, it's like Mitting didn't thank him at the end.
No, he didn't.
He said
very unusual.
He said, "You'll have to wait a year for the report." It's to have a timetable there.
It's more. It's going to be more. Don't believe it. When the inquiry gives you a timetable, double it.
Before, and then that was that, and it was.
Yeah. So, I mean, that comes to the end of the questioning of James Thomson. That means we won't be sitting tomorrow. There'll be no hearing tomorrow. It's been a fairly unpleasant experience listening to him for 3 days. Mostly he's been saying, I don't remember. I mean, he must have said, I don't remember, hundreds and so many hundreds of times.
I think in one day he did 130.
Yeah, first day, apparently so. So, I mean, you can triple that at the very least. Any lasting impressions of the man?
I'm glad his evidence is over. He sat there, he had this tactic, and we always talk about when you interact with the police and this stuff, it's just that feeling of being slimed, of having snails and slugs running up and down your back. And that's, I haven't had that for a while, but coming out of that evidence is just like,
Earlier on today, Alison suggested that as well as the water, we should have been provided with sick bags in order to listen. And there were some very disgusting moments, really were.
No, the guy couldn't come out and properly apologise. Everything had to be cast. Well, if I did that, or it's just like me. Have the guts to stand up and be respectful and honest about something. And I feel fairly sorry for all the students and all the other people who've had to work with him. It's just pretty sickening.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is the closest I've seen. Just quickly, the closest I've seen Mitting come to go like, I think you're lying to any of the undercover officers.
Yeah. And I also think that the place where he was working, which is now taking down his thing, is just like they should be seriously concerned about his sexual
Brunel University. Yeah.
Given what we've heard about how he pestered the women that he targeted as young women. Who else is he doing this to in his job? I'm sorry, but this is an ethics issue.
Yeah. And there's a pattern. There's definitely a pattern.
So,
yeah. Well, anything else to add?
Lots, but I'm not going to say.
Okay, I'll be doing a Twitter Spaces this evening. I'll try and do a video again, sort of recapping. I didn't end up doing one on Thursday. I don't know how many of those we've been doing. As I said in some of the other videos, I'm sorry for the breaks in some of my reporting, some of the deleted. A lot of deleted texts today, tweets today. Some of the videos I've shared in the past have had to come down. It's a very difficult process, reporting on the Undercover Policing Inquiry. There are lots of layers of secrecy. So, sometimes my coverage is a bit sort of scattered because of that. I hope it won't happen again, but I'm sure it will. Thanks for joining. We'll be back at the inquiry on Wednesday. We'll be hearing from Lewis, who was an activist in Movement for Justice, who will be giving evidence. Then on Thursday, we'll be hearing from Lois Austin, who is an active part of Campaign Opposing Police Surveillance, but back in the day, she was actively involved with Youth Against Racism in Europe, which was targeted by undercover officers, particularly Peter Francis. We'll also be hearing from David Gilman, who is one of the Blacklist Support Group. So lots. I
think this is the phase where we'll start seeing people like Peter Francis and Carlo Soracchi. Yeah. We'll start seeing the evidence around them. So we've dealt with one horrible episode, and we now on to the next set.
Yeah. Lots more to come. Thanks for joining us, and see you on Wednesday.